This is Acer Sango Kaku, in my opinion, one of the best varieties and highly underrated varieties of Japanese maple. 15 to 20, occasionally 25 foot high, with a nice, strong, vigorous, upright growing habit that broadens out with age. Comes out in springtime with yellowish young growth that's pinkish tinged, green during the summertime, but now in autumn takes on this spectacular butter yellow and canary yellow colour with orangey tints, and then in the winter time these beautiful bright red stems. Hardy to zone 5, it's an excellent variety that we've been growing for many years and certainly deserves to be grown in a lot more gardens. Beautiful small to medium-sized tree. Well, hello and welcome, and thank you for joining us. It's a beautiful morning in early autumn, and here in my garden, as you see, the leaves are just beginning to fall. It's a lovely temperature, there's hardly a breath of air moving, and as you can see, lots of colour and interest at this time, one of my favourite times of all to be out in the garden. And where else would I rather be than here in our own little piece of personal paradise? And that's one of the fabulous things about having a garden for me. A place to relax, a place to just sit back and enjoy the beauties of nature, let the craziness of the outside world go by, just de-stress and just enjoy the seasons as they unfold. And of course, the essence of every good garden is to have colour and interest through the whole of the year, not just on a beautiful day in springtime, but in the summer, if possible during the winter time, and especially in the autumn time when we can get spectacular colour and a very nice temperature to be outside. And that's why I encourage everyone to go and visit the garden centres regularly at other times of the year, not just on a beautiful spring day, because when you're there, you're likely to discover some of the things that otherwise you might have missed, things that will give you colour and interest through the whole 12 months of the year. And a very good example of that is this wonderful Japanese maple. This is Acer Sango Kaku. It's a plant that has green leaves during the summertime, very nice, but not particularly noticeable. But now in the fall, as you see, it goes this glorious bright canary yellow with orange overtones, and it just brings the garden alive with lots of vibrant colour. And what's more, it's not finished with that, because when it drops its leaves in probably another 2 or 3 weeks time, then it's got red stems, and that's why they call it the coral bark maple. Particularly noticeable during the winter time, especially if there's snow on the ground, and with young vigorous plants, it is a bright, vibrant red. So as you see, this is a plant that gives you tremendous interest through the whole of the year, because it also has pretty foliage in springtime when it emerges first, right through the whole of the year. And that's why it's important to have valuable plants like this that reflect the whole of the gardening year. Now, as I think you can probably tell, my favorite time for enjoying this plant is now in the autumn time. I just love the warmth and depth of colour that these leaves provide when they start to turn in the autumn time. And if you look closely at the leaves, you'll see that this is a Japanese maple, an Acer palmatum type. The word palmatum means like a hand. And when you look at it closely, you'll see that they have 5 to 7 lobes. And then when you look at it extra closely, you'll see that the little petioles that join the leaf to the stem are bright red. So when you look up into the canopy and admire the foliage close up, you can see the really tremendous diversity of color that you get from this plant. Now this particular specimen is one that we planted about 18 to 20 years ago. They start off as young plants to have a very distinctive kind of vase shape. And then as they begin to mature, you'll see that they start to take on more of a rounded shape. In most people's gardens, they're going to be about 15 to 20 foot high, perhaps up to about 25 foot high. So it's an ideal size really for most people's gardens for small to medium-sized trees. And as you can see, it makes a great focal point. If you've got somewhere around your home where you want to try to brighten up and to take the eye into a distant spot, guess what? If you plant this out like that, you can see that it really draws your eye. And because it's so spectacular during the winter time, I'd suggest that you look also at perhaps finding a viewpoint out of a window or somewhere where you can be inside nice and warm and cozy during the winter time, and then look out and you'll be able to see the beautiful red stems on this lovely tree. And the nice thing about Japanese maples also is that they make very nice trees for town gardens or inner city areas too. In fact, it makes a lovely tree for planting in a courtyard or by a path or a driveway. You see, the roots on Japanese maples are not really invasive like some other forms of trees, and they grow very well in confined spaces. And the neat thing about Japanese maples is that they're really very easy, undemanding plants to grow. In fact, they'll do very well in an average garden soil as long as it's free draining. At planting time, be sure to incorporate plenty of organic matter and mulch them well too. That will help to keep them going during the drier periods of the year. And what's neat about them also is that they're really very adaptable to different soil types as well. I've seen them grown in sandy soils right through to those that have a higher proportion of clay. But it's important to make sure that your soil is free draining but has that moisture retentive properties during the drier periods. Now you'll see that our plant here was put under this big tulip poplar, which shows how really good they are at withstanding partially shaded conditions too. In fact, they do very well in partially shaded situations, and they make a wonderful understory tree for a woodland garden situation. Helps to brighten up the scene in there remarkably well. And also, what is tremendously important right here in this area, and perhaps in your garden too, and that is that deer normally don't bother with them. Here in my woodland garden, where I've got deer running through here all the time, I've never in 20 odd years seen them damage them. Now, one of my very favorite things to do is to stand like I am now and look up into the canopy of the tree, because the undersides of the leaves, together with those beautiful bright red petioles and shafts of light that falls through in between the branches, is truly a beautiful experience and one that I really enjoy. Now, the name of this plant, Sango Kaku, or coral bark maple as it's known botanically, is of course Japanese. Sango meaning coral, sea coral, reflecting on the red coloration of the stems, and kaku meaning upright growing, which of course refers to the way that it grows in that upright vase shape as a young plant. It's a plant that was introduced first round about 1882, but I always look at this plant with a certain degree of fondness, because you see, it was introduced first in 1920 by a nursery from my native Northern Ireland. Daisy Hill Nursery, ran by a superb plantsman called Tom Smith, introduced it from Japan around that time, together with another nursery, Sunningdale Nurseries in southern England. They introduced it to the British public, and it has been very popular in the UK and elsewhere in Europe, and now in North America ever since that point. And what's more, it's got multiple awards through the years. First of all, the RHS gave it an Award of Merit way back in 1950. Then, after trialling at Wisley, their trials garden, they gave it an Award of Garden Merit in 1969. And then that was reaffirmed again in 1993, which shows how the plant has continued to catch people's eyes, to alight all of that interest and imagination, and above all, demonstrate what a superb performer this elegant little tree is. So I hope you get a chance to grow it somewhere in your garden. This is David Wilson for Overdy Vest Nurseries. Enjoy your gardening. It's good for us, and it's very good for our environment too.